Okay, good morning. I love the buzz. People are in person, they're talking. It's fantastic. It's so great to see everyone this morning. So thanks for coming to today's networking breakfast and panel. How do I begin a career in HR? Hopefully you're in the right room. No one's trying to become a mechanic in here, I hope. So we'd first like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Maliseet people first signed with the British Crown in 1725. We also acknowledge the histories, contributions, and legacies of the African Nova Scotian people and communities who have been here for over 400 years. So I'd like to next thank we've got one sponsor this morning, it's Career Beacon. Thank you for their contributions today. This wouldn't be possible. I think each of you have paid $10, and as you can probably guess by the great quality of the breakfast, this costs exponentially more than $10. So we're appreciative of the sponsorship from Career Beacon. CareerBeacon.com is dedicated to supporting employers in finding and managing fresh new talent and helping job seekers find great career opportunities. Okay, so a lot of our events, sorry, let me first introduce myself. So I'm Nick Beynon. I'm the CEO of CPHR Nova Scotia. And I'd like to talk about CPHR Nova Scotia just for a slight second. This is not a sales pitch, but most of our events are filled with members. So we are a member-based association. And this is by far and away the largest ratio of non-members we've ever had in one room. So of course, I just want to do a quick little intro of CPHR Nova Scotia. So we are the HR professional association for the province. We govern and regulate the designation in this province. There is a national body that we belong to voluntarily, and we work together collaboratively across the nation. And I think the thing that we're most famous for is the designation, and for good reason. It is the gold standard of HR designations in the country. There's nothing else like it. We've got one designation, there's no confusion. That one designation is the gold standard. So if you have the designation, you have been vetted through a very rigorous process. You've established that you have a certain level of academia, a certain level of experience, and that your behaviors are consistent with what we'd expect and align with our code of ethics and professional expectations. No question in my mind, and I'm sure the panelists will agree with me, that the designation on your resume speaks volumes about how skilled you are and how confident you are. And when you walk into a room, it's no different than a doctor. If you've been to a doctor's appointment recently, you probably walked in there and you didn't say, "Can I see your qualifications?" I want to make sure when you say you're a doctor, that you are a doctor. The designation does the same thing. You walk into a boardroom, you are a chartered member, and the room respects that. They understand. You know what you're talking about. There's a lot of people that are in HR and they can't get the designation. The designation does more than just say that you're competent. It also says you're well-rounded. So we've got headhunters who consider themselves HR professionals, and they are fantastic at what they do. But we can't have them walk into that room and say, "I'm an HR professional," because they know one thing and they know it really well. They're probably very skilled at that one thing, but they don't have a wide enough gamut to consider themselves a chartered member. And so that is just another layer of what that designation does when you walk into a room. You have it on your resume. Beyond the designation, of course, we have some political clout. So when these politicians pitch forward new acts or legislation changes, they're not HR professionals, and they don't fully understand the implications to workplaces. So they reach out to us, and we leverage our members to influence the policy changes. And of course, we also do training. So we offer training opportunities like the one you're at today, either free, typically at a very low price, especially for members. And that helps our members continuously develop. As you probably have seen the world change dramatically in the last 3 years, so does the HR world as we quickly keep up with these seem to be never-ending upheavals. So last thing I just want to say on the note of training is I want to thank you. You've come today, which means that you are interested in improving yourself. and expanding your skill set. So by being here today, you've invested in yourself, and I want to thank you for that. All right, so we're going to get on to the panel now. So we are absolutely thrilled to welcome our 4 panelists here on the stage. And first we have Amber McRoberts, third-year student at Mount St. Vincent University. She's also a campus ambassador for the CPHR as a volunteer, so we appreciate that. Next, we have Susan Thompson-Graham, head instructor for the graduate certificate in human resource management at the NSEC. And then next, we have Kelsey Baker, CPHR, human resource generalist at Halifax Port Authority. Also our last year's Rising Star Award winner, which is another thing that the association does, awards. And then last but not least, Melanie Wells, CPHR, Director of HR at the Great Canadian Gaming Corporation. So now I'll turn it over.
All right. Oh,
and
nice.
you're live.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Yeah, like Nick said, my name is Amber. I'm going into my 4th year at Mount St. Vincent University. I'm majoring in strategic human resource management, and I am also CPHR Nova Scotia's first ever campus ambassador. So that means I get the pleasure of talking to the student body and spreading CPHR's message and values and support my peers through their post-secondary education.
Cool.
Perfect. Susan?
Hi, my name is Susan Thompson-Graham. I know a lot of you in the room already, and I worked for several years in HR in the public sector, private sector, parapublic sector before deciding that I wanted to teach. And at NSCC, I got the opportunity to develop and create the first advanced diploma, at the time it was called, in human resource management. I think I started when I was 11, and I've been there 27 years now, teaching online the last couple of years, which was its own exciting HR challenge. Yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I also run a small business and have done consulting over the years as well, so it's nice to be here and see you all in person, live.
Perfect. And Kelsey?
All right, hi everyone. So my name is Kelsey Baker. I graduated from St. Mary's University with actually a major in finance and a human resource certificate in 2015. I got my CPHR designation in July of 2020, so about 2 years now. I was also, as Nick said, the 2020 Rising Star Award recipient, which is a really great award and something that is, really great for the profession and for those young and up and coming professionals in the industry. I am currently the HR generalist at the Halifax Port Authority, so I've been there for about 7 years now. So basically on a day-to-day basis, doing everything related to HR, very heavy in recruitment right now, but compensation, training and development, everything related to an employee I would be looking after. So in a nutshell, that is me. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? Some energy flowing. Yeah. So my name is Melanie, and Susan and I were talking earlier when we first arrived that I took when it was still called the Advanced Diploma Program back in 2002. So we calculated that's 20 years ago. So yes, we were both bébés when we started that. Mm-hmm. So I did the advanced diploma back in 2002. Since then, been with the casino since 2006. I've had a great career there. I always say started at the bottom, now I'm here. A little Drake reference for any of you in the audience. So started as a coordinator there and then moved my way through progressive senior roles, and now the director of human resources there. Again, mixed bag of everything that I do there on a daily basis, everything from performance management, attendance management, and right now the grind that most human resource professionals know, and that is recruitment. I would say in all of my years being in human resources, I have never seen a job market like this. But the good news for all of you HR folks is you're going into a great job market. Certainly when I started, you really had to plug away, and Kelsey said even when she started 7 years ago, you really had to grind to get that first HR coordinator role. So good news for all of you. That's going to be a bit of a better plate set for you all, if you will. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and a little bit about good luck to all of you.
Just hearing you, I feel tired. I want to retire, and you guys can take over. So obviously you just heard there's an amazing amount of talent here, so please take advantage of this opportunity. I'll start asking some questions, but I would love some questions from the audience. We've drafted some questions together, hoping to extract the information that I think you'd be most interested in. But again, amazing talent here, so please, from the audience, any questions you may have. I'll break the ice, and then I'll look to the audience every once in a while. But I do want to point one other thing out, that you have a lot in common with the panelists. There was a point where they were starting to, and they asked the same question: how do I begin a career in HR? Right, just what you're about to endeavor into, they've done. And so you can learn from their successes, their failures, we're gonna have tips and tricks for the rest of the afternoon, or morning.
How long are we going to be here for?
All right, so I'll kick it off with the first question. I'm gonna start with you, Kelsey. I think I misspelled your name here. What were some of the challenges you faced when starting a career in HR?
Yes, so just building off of what Melanie had actually said in her introduction, even 7 years ago, I don't think we've ever seen a job market like it is today. So my experience may actually be a little bit different, which is actually a really great thing for you. So when I graduated SMU, I actually did not know if I was going to end up in HR or not. I knew that I had kind of this certificate, but I also had a degree in finance, so I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go. So I actually say that HR kind of found me after 3 months of kind of applying to everything that I saw come up, countless resumes that I'm sure you guys are preparing now. I actually had, through a connection, I actually ended up at the Halifax Port Authority. One of the things that I hear are challenges are, I'm not really sure what area of HR I want to go into, which is okay, because for me, I went in as an HR assistant, which means that I got exposure to all parts of the business. So you learn from kind of the bottom up, as Melanie was saying, and I think that's very important. So once you're in that role, moving up to more of a coordinator or, specializing in different things, you have time to do all of those things and figure out what you really want to do. So don't be afraid, I guess, to, start near the bottom and kind of build your way up, because you're going to get a really great foundation, and then you're going to find ways that you can actually specialize. I know for me, it's taken me about 7 years. I can tell you right now, I do not want to do recruitment full time. That's the one thing that I know right now. And then you're going to find other ways that you want to get in there. The other thing I will say is, really building those connections and kind of getting your foot in the door. I know that I was very guilty of just applying to all the jobs that came up. But for me, looking at it from the other side, I really appreciate when candidates who are applying actually put effort into actually researching the organization. Where do you see yourself? Do my values actually align with this organization, and where do I see myself in this? If we post a role on LinkedIn and somebody applies within 3 seconds, there's probably not much thought kind of going into that. So don't get resume fatigue, I guess is what I'm going to say, and really try to target to what you think you're going to be happy in. So in terms of challenges, Nick, I guess that's what I would say, but also some strategies to kind of avoid some of those things.
Any follow-up questions from the audience? That was a great answer, great insights. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I have 2 follow-up questions. One of them is say that I started from the beginning and after that the development. I'm wondering if there are some functions in HR section that there's no room for development. For example, when I'm looking for a job, I would see some recruitment and talent acquisitions, but I've heard that there's no room for development if you start a job in these specific functions in HR.
You really projected well, and I'm sure the audience heard you fully, but just for the purposes of the cameras, I'm going to repeat the question. I'm going to summarize, hopefully I get this right, but of the many functions in HR, I've lost my train of thought. In the functions of any HR, is there any that
Nowhere to
are
go.
more difficult to get into? Is that, no,
But
sorry.
there's nowhere for development, right?
There's nowhere, yeah, nowhere, right, okay, there's
Yeah.
nowhere for growth and development in
Yeah.
any particular functions.
So I guess for me, I would say everyone needs to start somewhere. I feel like recruitment is very large right now. I think that, you know, you can get into recruitment and then kind of move around as you gain that experience. Sometimes getting your foot in the door and actually having some experience on the resume, I feel really opens the doors to doing other things. I wouldn't say it's necessarily career limiting, but there may, as far as I'm concerned, no, but other people
Yeah,
may have opinions.
I was going to add that I don't think that there's anything that's career limiting or there's no room for development, because even if you're in recruiting for a long time, you can always take it in a strategic direction, and then you're adding HR planning, succession planning, retention strategies, so that leads you to compensation. So the nice thing about HR, the nice thing about HR is that all of the functional areas are so interwoven that I think even if you're in one area for a long time, that still has offshoots that you can take in another direction. Go laterally, go up, go laterally, go up. You know, you can certainly do it that way. That's kind of my experience.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is you can always put your hand up, right? So if you do get into a role that is a little bit niche, you can always find opportunities to put your hand up for other things. So it's all about building your resume. I know when we have at the casino, we usually have a team of 3. And I always sort of recognize when I hire people that are sort of up and comers and they're really, you know, they really want to move in their career, unless I kick off, do you know what I mean? There's going to be a natural stopping point for the progression, or if people don't want to be mobile. So it's also understanding it's okay to be in a role for a couple of years, get some good experience. And as an employer, I recognize that. And I encourage people, you know, if there's nowhere to grow and move with us, you know, I will fully endorse and support you, you know, to move to another role. So it's just all about building your resume, building your portfolio, building your experience.
I like metaphors, and I think everyone's heard of the term career ladder. And just as Susan's hands were weaving as she was describing it, it reminded me of there's a term that a lot of HR professionals will use now to get people out of that one-track mind. And it's career lattice instead of ladder. So you sort of zigzag your way through. And sometimes it means you even step out of the HR function fully and completely. You go to finance and you pick up some new skill sets there, and you come back and you're that much more valuable to your department. So thank you for that. Great, okay. Susan, I'm going to go back to you.
Okay.
Sorry, not back to you, but I was just talking about you. Sell me on a career in HR.
Okay, I've been doing that for a long
I'm
time.
assuming there's people, is it fair to say there's people in the room not locked into HR?
And that's okay. That's totally cool if you're not locked into HR, because I always say when I start my year, I really kind of, I have a few students from this year in the room, and they'll say that I'm very honest about what you're going to be facing in HR. And I originally got into HR because I was really interested in employment law, and that's still one of my passions. But I think once you get into HR, I can honestly say I have never in 35 plus years had a day that was boring, ever. Not ever. There's so much variety in HR. I mean, there's days you want to tear your hair out.
We can call it that. Variety.
There's definitely days you want to tear your hair out, but there's so much to do, and especially if you go with a generalist exposure. And again, that's kind of what I always encourage people to do, is a generalist exposure, because you're going to be in compensation and labor relations, in training and diversity and inclusion. You're going to have so much going on that you're never going to be bored. But the one thing that really drew me to the profession is what I call your role as ombudsperson. I really feel like you're the ombudsperson for the organization. I feel that you're the arbiter of rational, reasonable, fairness, best use of resources, best planning. I really feel that that's what has drawn me to and kept me in this field, because I really feel that that's your role. You're not, as many people would say, management's mole. No, you're not. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're also not, unfortunately, best friend of the employees. You're in that ombudsperson role, and you really have to be that arbiter of reasonableness and the right course and plan within the organization. So if you like variety, and if you like balance, reasonableness, and fairness and logic, Ooh, who doesn't like all those?
That's like
Why wouldn't you want a career in HR, I guess is my question. And then the third reason would be right now, the increase in HR roles has been almost 300% in the last 3 years. And so there's never been a better time to get into this field than right now. But again, it does have to be what you want. And going into it, understanding that if, and the other thing is I chose personally myself to work in large organizations because I just liked the hustle bustle of large organizations. You need to think about the culture that fits you as well. But variety, ombudsperson. There, did I sell it, Nick?
Yes, I'm definitely sold. It's funny, as you were talking, what I was also thinking about as you're describing that is the benefits to an organization. How amazing it is to have an HR team, HR professionals. And I thought, I wondered if you could if you could imagine a workplace that doesn't have an HR department, doesn't have the benefits of all that you described.
Yeah. I have a saying that I often say in class, either do it wrong or don't do it at all, you'll get similar results kind of thing. So I think, when you look at the ability for organizations to thrive today, especially if you look at the big companies, successful Fortune 500 companies, they have something in common, and that's strong HR competencies within their workforce, right? They have diversity and inclusion. They have compensation strategies that retain their workers. They have, and knowing your workers as an HR professional, you need to know all your workers, and you need to know what they do. You cannot sit in an office and not be seeing your folks on a regular basis. You need to be dropping in, having sessions, communicating with them. But I think if you look at workplaces that are successful, it's because they have strong communication, strong succession plans, good HR planning, strong strategic compensation, good performance management. All those pieces are in place, and those are the organizations that are thriving and surviving. The ones that survived the pandemic the best are those organizations.
And it seems so obvious that it's like now more than ever, but you have to ask yourself, is that only going to increase over time?
I think it is.
That's the trajectory of the importance. And I don't see it slowing down or reversing.
I don't at all. Finally, it took a pandemic.
Yeah,
Took a pandemic.
yeah, exactly. Backed up by the amazing skills that we bring.
Right.
yeah.
Those two.
All right. Amber, I'm going to turn to you. I think you bring a unique perspective. So, as you heard in Amber's introduction, she's not working in HR right now. She's preparing. I think she's got a very bright future ahead of her. And I look at the other panelists, and myself included, we're in it. And so I think our perspective is a bit skewed because we're in it. You haven't entered in it. So I believe you might have a further future view, if you will. So I'm wondering, what do you think an HR career looks like in the future?
That's very exciting because HR is changing so much, and I know in 10 years, or even when I get into it, it can look completely different from what it looks like now. Automation, AI, data processing, technology, it's all happening so fast, and it's affecting everything we do in HR, from recruitment, compensation, and training. And it's really important because it can not take away the things that are important that an HR professional is doing, but it helps them focus on another part. And it's insane to me how fast it can change. So it's really interesting and very important for us to understand how we can adapt to that.
For me, it's kind of scary. I look at all of the various functions within organizations, and IT, of course, has rapid change. Finance, I don't think has changed that much, but HR is like, it's just crazy with the social justice movements and the upheaval of the pandemic. I don't know. I'm glad you've got an eye on it because I can't see it. My head's in the sand right now. Any questions from the audience? Yes, absolutely.
I'm Sean.
Hi, Sean.
You guys spoke about the pandemic, and I was wondering how you tackled that in terms of mental health. Because I heard that is definitely a buzzword in this profession, in terms of like psychological contract, et cetera, et cetera. How did you guys face that, those who were at home? I'm talking about things like working from home at flex time. To me, if I was an HR professional and something like that happened, where do you even start? You know what I mean?
It was.
So the question was, the pandemic hit us, and then to the panel, what did you do to confront this challenge?
Specifically,
With
yeah.
a focus on mental health.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely very difficult. I would say where I work at the casino, it's very challenging to provide flexible work arrangements because you need to be at a table game to deal at table games to our guests. I would say the first thing we did, when we reopened after the pandemic is we were just sure to be out in front of people. We did robust reorientation sessions in which we provided mental health resources, like a myriad of different resources to people. And I think it's about staying plugged in and keeping a pulse on it. We also sort of implemented different apps that people could use through our Employee Family and Assistance program. And we just obviously promote the heck out of our Employee Family and Assistance program and just try to plug people into those resources. But I would say, sort of going back to Susan's point, you have to stay connected to your people. You have to be having those daily conversations because, again, if you just kind of stick in your office, you're not really quite understanding the impact. And I can say firsthand, I would say before the pandemic, we were seeing an increase in mental health in the workplace and just, people sort of bringing that into the workplace. And certainly with the pandemic, I'm seeing that more. So I would say it's about providing resources and staying plugged in are the two most important pieces that we've done.
I just would add to that, not from I obviously wasn't an employer, but an educator. And again, I think NSCC did a great job in terms of having resources available and that sort of thing for students and for employees. But I think, in terms of keeping attached and knowing what's going on, burnout was a huge issue. And I'd often I'm looking at my two grads over there, but you have to be aware of signs of burnout from people. I felt it. I taught online for 2 years and was doing 12-hour days every one of those years. So you have to, and I'd see in my students someday, I'd go, you're not talking today, you're not kind of with me, like what's going on, and taking that time to kind of check in, I think makes a big difference. I think there's a question over there, Nick.
Yes. Yep. Thanks.
My name is Kevin Ferguson. I guess this would be a question for Melanie or Susan. What advice would you give for people who are transitioning a second career into the HR field? What kind of advice would you give to us?
So the question was about anyone that's transitioning from a non-HR function into HR.
Listen, I always say, and there was another question where I was going to make this point, but I'll make it now. I think that there's a lot to be said for transferable skills. I fully believe in that. I would say, when I was a young person, yesterday, starting my career, it was difficult to find a human resources position. I was a server at the time, and so I had to, at the time, think a little bit creatively about how I was going to get the skills for an employer to consider me for a human resources role. So at the time, servers make pretty good tips, but I took a pay cut to take a food and beverage supervisor position because I knew I would get some of those raw HR skills, like recruiting, performance management. And I find that people who have those skills are actually very valuable to the business. Mm-hmm. And I'm 110% behind that because when I hired an advisor last year, I brought somebody in that actually didn't have a specific HR experience role on the resume, but she had years of experience managing a Sobeys. And she was able to come into our organization and really relate to our managers and really understand the grind, the challenges, and the pressures that they were under. So I would say there was a lot to say about transferable skills. So I guess my advice would be really promote those transferable skills, when you're going out into the market. And one thing I do see there's a bit of a lost art around is the cover letter. And that is your opportunity to sell those transferable skills. And I find these days I'm just getting more so resumes. And I don't know if it's old school, maybe you guys can tell me, but
It's not.
Yeah, I like a good cover letter. I want you to connect the dots for me. I want you to express your enthusiasm for the role. And I find it's getting a bit lesser that you're getting cover letters.
I agree with what Melanie is saying. And I think too, I could say to you that I've had several students over the years that have transitioned from a career. And I think in particular of one gentleman who had been with Zellers for many years. Remember Zellers as a manager, and then Target came in, and where did Target go? I don't know. But he was very worried about taking this next step in his career, and we kind of talked about all of the skills and all of the things that he had that came from those years and years of managing. I've had people come this year. I had someone who was a massage therapist for many years. I've had people who were social workers for many years. Again, all of those skills you bring from those professions ease that change into the new profession. He's now the director of the bookstore at St. Mary's, that particular person, because when St. Mary's contacted me and said, this is the role we have, who do you have? He immediately came to mind. And I said, he's the person for this because he had all of that Zellers experience, right? So I think, and I'm not sure sort of what you're thinking about in terms of transitioning from one career to another. The other great thing is we have a labor shortage. So no matter where you're coming from, how old you are, any of those things that used to matter, they don't anymore. So, we definitely will try to find those competencies wherever they are necessary. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, there was a discussion that we kind of had over here as well. I find there's a lot of entry-level HR positions when you talk about availability on the market, where you can start off making $40,000. And I think that's great for people who are starting school. It's a great way, as Kelsey said, getting in, getting your feet wet, exploring. Us folks that are halfway through our career, that doesn't really make sense.
No.
And it kind of prevents us from getting in because why give up the leadership job that we have that makes triple that to just because it's a passion, I love it and I have experience that I think is very much in line. But I find if you don't have a title when you do your resume that says HR something, that it's harder to get past some of the hurdles. That's my experience anyway. Especially for the kind of middle, higher end job.
I think like Melanie was saying too, through the cover letter and through kind of, massaging your skill set into the right kind of message might certainly help in that direction.
Spin off to his question. I'm Shana, by the way. I work full-time for the federal government, but I'm studying HR through math. Applying for federal government jobs, their recruitment process is different. So they want you to write in a different way than, usually your resume could sell you. On their platform, your resume doesn't sell you. You need to be able to answer the skill set questions and so on and so forth. So when you're trying to migrate into HR, how do you do that when you can't use your resume as your self?
I'm just going to say, and then someone else jump in. What about a portfolio? So that's kind of where I would go with that, as an electronic portfolio and being able to demonstrate all of your competencies that way. But I don't know, you tell me if that's
They don't have, so they'll give you, they got away from competencies.
Okay.
But they're, depending on, like, when you go on their website, they'll ask you a question, they want you to demonstrate how you can show that you have the skills. So someone who's coming in out of school, applying to, say, entry level at the bottom of a tier of the HR jobs, you don't have those experiences because you only have your technical training, right? So it makes it hard, and it basically screens you out before you even have a chance to advertise. Is there a way, like if they don't have connections, so it's not like when you use Career Begin, excuse me, where they have like the HR contact. I've tried to go that avenue because I thought, okay, there has to be an alternate way for me to get my resume to the table, like, or somebody to see me and look at my resume, because my resume has always been my selling tool to put me into good positions and whatever not, but their hiring process is different. And then when you apply, like where they list the HR person at the bottom, they're not inviting to say, you know what, I can look into this, or, even if you do like an entry email, I've tried that before. Out of all the times I've done that, I had 2 good HR HR people that were actually must have really loved their job because they're like, oh, one lady said, I'm going to forward this over to this person. You have, like, and I included my resume.
Do you mind if I jump in? I think I'm going to call a friend. I think we have a friend in the room that might be able to help. Jim, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think you have any insight to offer on this?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Stewart. I'm a retired federal HR specialist.
No.
Hi, Jen.
I'll chat with you afterwards because I think I might be able to answer some of the questions.
That's good.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
There you go. Networking. Thank you, Jim. Yeah. Oh, another
Got a
hand.
couple
Yes.
more.
Susan, you keep stealing my job.
Pay attention, Nick. Come on. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
My name is James Willies. I've been recruiting for 13 years and very interested to know why everybody on the panel thinks recruiting is so hard and heavy and challenging, and I just want to understand, maybe share your pain.
So to summarize, what's the deal with recruiting?
What's the deal with recruiting?
Why the hate?
I don't think that it's that recruiting's hard. I just think it's getting the bodies to the table to recruit is what, that we're finding difficulty with. And my business in particular, we are a little bit challenged in that we are very highly regulated. So we have a gaming license process that everybody has to go through. So somebody could go, work at Zellers and start work there the next day, or even at the Prince George or whatever the business, insert name. But we have sort of a layered hiring process which adds on time. So it's not a detractor necessarily, but it adds time, which can dissuade applicants. But I think the real answer is the labor market and the bodies, I think, is the simplest response, the shortage.
Yeah, and I think for me, I agree with Melanie. I mean, I'll give you an example. 3 years ago, we might have filled 6 jobs in a year. Right now, we have 12 to 20 at a time that we're trying. Those are new positions. Those are people that are leaving for new opportunities. I don't know about all of you, but when I go on LinkedIn, it's like, oh, this person has a new job, this person has a new job, this person has a new job. And the other thing that we're actually finding a little bit difficult right now is we are heavily regulated like Melanie. So we can't have somebody start the next day either. It's kind of, at least a 2-month period, I'm gonna say, in order for us to get a body in the door. So it's just the time and our current resources that we have, which is making it difficult. Now there's lots of great opportunities, but just we don't have the resources internally in order to recruit on that scale.
Right. So the word shouldn't be hard, more challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I think what we're seeing right now, and I'll go to, I know this isn't specifically HR, but especially for IT roles specifically, compensation right now is actually insane too. So when we're trying to fill these roles, sometimes it's difficult to match with our compensation structures, because some private companies, we can say, okay, we're gonna offer you $130,000, but companies with formal salary ranges can't do that.
Absolutely. I echo that.
I'm going to throw out a thought and see feel free to react. I find in HR there's a different mindset. Like you're wired. Generally, HR people are wired similarly, but I find there's certain categories where they're very differently wired. And that is like comp. There's a bit more focus on the black and white, the data, and getting into the spreadsheets and living that world. Health and safety similar, and then recruitment's the other one that I find is on another end. They're just wired differently. I find.
Yeah, I think too, I just wanted to add a little bit. Outside of this role, I have a small business, and we went the route of becoming a designated employer through the Atlantic Canada Pilot Project in order to get workers, because it became literally impossible, but we now have a partnership through the Atlantic Canada Pilot Project, so we have workers coming from India, for example, who commit to working for us for 2 years in exchange for us helping to fast track their citizenship, and that's really, or the permanent residency, I should say. And that's really helped, but those are the kinds of challenges that everyone's facing. And recruiting for me, sorry, it got boring. I like generalist. I like generalist exposure. I like to have my fingers in everything, kind of thing. Yeah. No offense, though, if you love it.
It's all good. Just kind of want to piggyback off of the gentleman here. I've gone back to school, finished up with St. Mary's, focusing on training and development. Because I believe that the trainer makes the best team that they can possibly make, and then you have a great team, and then you have a good thing going. So, but I'm entering the market again coming from recruitment and with an advanced HR diploma from St. Lawrence, but coming in and looking at a salary as an HR generalist or an HR advisor or an HR coordinator, I'm looking at it and going, I can't pay my bills. What am I going to do? How are organizations going to be able to work with that? Like, how are you guys or individuals going to be able to pitch to the finance manager and say, hey, no, we really need this person because their transferable skills are great and they got this skill set's great. They're not going to really actually take the job unless we can like double it. How are we going to do that? And plus, we don't have enough people anyway, so we should probably do this. How is that happening?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, I guess is what I would say. I think you need to balance all of those pieces. I mean, double is probably not going to be likely, but again, you do have to look at the fact if you do need to fill that position, you are going to have to look at where can you move. And so sometimes we'll try to be creative with whether it's benefits or waiving wait periods, and also just sort of massaging the fact that, you know, sometimes it is maybe a little bit of a, you know, a pay cut in the short term. And again, looking at it as an opportunity sort of to develop and grow your resume. And so sometimes you really kind of have to look at it as a job seeker from that perspective. But as an employer, we have to play ball a little bit, obviously, and that is definitely the case. And I think a lot of businesses right now are definitely reviewing compensation structures and practices because of this very issue, which is a real issue.
And being strategic about what you can give rather than cash, because cash is taxable and often perks are, you know, tax deductible. So, you know, if you look at what people are looking for, and I think that's the key thing, what do people want? Do they want you to pay towards their daycare? Do you want to pay for parking downtown? You know, what do you want people to have, which may be more accessible for the compensation strategy rather than just pure cash all the time.
Or maybe a career progression over to the right side of the left side.
Exactly.
Exactly, Okay. No, thank you, sorry. I didn't mean to take too much of that.
No, that's what we want. We want two-way dialogue.
There was someone over there, Nick, just to do your job again. I've
got one job.
One job, Nick.
I'm sorry, Nick.
Please go ahead. Just ignore the panelists.
My question is, based on your experience, like, do you think, I just finished my human resource certificate as a Mary's, and then I got a position in the human resource, but I feel like whatever I took in school, when I apply in real life, like, it's not, like, I just feel like it's not really what we took in school. I was going to go back to school and do a master in human resource, but based on your experience, do you think it's more about experience, like to excel in the human resource role, or?
I think it is about experience personally. I think you can learn a lot of good skills, and I'm going to say this because my professor's out on the panel here. You do learn a lot of core skills. So for example, we did do mock collective bargaining, but nothing really prepares you for collective bargaining unless you're really at a table at 11:30 p.m. at night. You can banter with your classmates. I'm telling you, it's not quite the same. It prepares you. It gives you a little bit of what I would say a realistic job preview. But in my opinion, human resources is built on all of those experiences you get along the way. I think your schooling prepares you well, but I think that it's just all of those, you know, it's all those difficult conversations you're going to need to have. It's, you know, those awful termination meetings. Like, that's sort of the battleground, if you will, of human resources, and that's how you're going to build and sort of grow as a human resources professional.
And throw another metaphor. It's like reading a book on how to ride a bike, right? Like, you won't know how to ride a bike until you ride a bike. But at least the book can inform you that your feet go here, your hands go there, and these are the brakes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of valuable experience because every organization does things a little bit differently. I know, you know, as Melanie said, you know, there are a lot of transferable skills that you can kind of take from your education or other roles that you had. But no matter when you go into another role within another organization, you can bring all of those skills, but there's also going to be things that, you know, they maybe do differently, or they're going to have a different negotiating team if you're doing negotiations. So all of those things can be different. I very much rely on experience, like Melanie said.
I would say too, I'm over 16 years and I still run into situations that I've not run into and I need to figure it out. And that's 16 plus years in. So you're always learning and growing in this
In those
profession.
16 years, do you find you ever go back to your old textbooks? Do you open them up?
All the time. I think I actually just finally purged them. I thought, I'm not going to refer to these. I feel they've been updated since then too.
Okay. We're going to switch gears for a sec. I'll come back to the audience. There's a couple questions I want to get out. So we had a networking portion this morning, and hopefully you got to know a little bit about your table mates. And I just wanted to throw it over to Amber to hear if she had any advice, because it can be a scary thing, networking, but unknown. What do you talk about, the weather? And I wonder if you had any tricks to offer to break through that fear factor.
Yeah, so networking is terrifying for me too. Don't love it, but it comes naturally when you know what to do when you're getting involved in events and you're making small talk and you're just taking steps, one step at a time. And when people think of networking, they think of talking to someone at a company that they want to work for and talking to someone like a CEO or manager and not knowing what to say. But it's more than that. It's much smaller than that. But what I always do, I find a friend or seek someone out who I know there, bring someone. This morning, I sat with Kelsey. I didn't know anyone, so we started from there and we had a great chat at that table. Another thing you can do is keep in contact with people you meet post-secondary. Get to know your professors. Keep in touch with your professors. It'll help so much. I'm here because I talked to one of my professors, and I was never used to doing that, and that's huge. It'll help a lot.
I just want to do a quick poll in the audience before we dive into a new topic I want to pitch. How many of you are in an accredited post-secondary institution program? Accredited meaning you're sort of fast track. You can skip the exam if you get the right grade. Okay.
For the certification?
For the designation, yeah. Okay. I wonder, I'm going to go back to you, Amber. I don't know if you have any advice or tips about the accreditation process. We find, I'm going to share a myth. A lot of our students believe that once they graduate, that's it. They've got the designation. And I wonder if you could respond to that.
Yeah, so that's definitely not true. So once you graduate, you need to apply for the candidate status. You need to become a CPHR member at first. So that's your first step. Become a member right now if you aren't already. It's very helpful. They have great mentorship programs, and it's helping me so much already. You need to apply for the NKE waiver, the exam waiver, pay the fee. You need to request an official transcript be sent from your institution to CPHR, and then you can get your experience.
Perfect, thank you, that's helpful. I think I saw...
Jim had his hand up.
Jim? Yeah.
So there's a lot of folks here that either have done a co-op or maybe still be able to do a co-op. From your different perspectives, while doing that co-op, what would you suggest would be one thing or most important thing that the students or you people try to aspire to learn from that co-op?
So I think the question was, what's the most important thing you should learn or aspire to when you're in a co-op program?
I'll talk from the teaching perspective, and then you both maybe from the student. I always say to my students to make yourself indispensable at the internship co-op, whatever you want to call it, and to always be asking to participate. Ask to participate in meetings. Ask to participate in training sessions. Ask to participate in daily work that's going on. So make yourself indispensable. Meet everyone you can possibly meet at your work term, co-op, internship. And then ask for more work every day, ask for more to do. I think sitting back, I've had, over the years, a few students call me, oh, I don't like my internship, it's not going well, I'm just not doing anything. And I'm like, well, what have you done? What have you done to kind of make yourself known in the workplace? That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would add to that because sometimes you can get busy as somebody, you know, you've got your own role to do, and though sometimes it's difficult to try to carve out work and find things for an intern to do. So, you know, I said at the beginning, it's about putting your hand up, and I would agree with Susan and sort of echo the fact of just trying to meet as many people as you can and just try to get as much exposure as you can to as many different functional areas, because in the end that will benefit you when you do go to look for a permanent position.
I'm going to ask one last question, and then it's totally from the audience from there on out. And I think I'm going to you, Melanie, if that's okay.
It's fine.
I wonder if you, so the designations, I did a little bit of an intro at the beginning. And
You did, yeah.
I did, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe the benefits of the designation.
I feel I might
if
echo.
You believe there's benefits.
I feel I might echo some of your points, but certainly as a proud CPHR holder, I would say obviously the designation really demonstrates a commitment to the profession and really is, as you said, a testimony to just how competent, professional, and capable you are as a human resource professional. I would say a little tongue-in-cheek, you know, we're kind of a big deal. You know, that's really because it's not, you know, as we've already made the point, you don't just go and get your CPHR designation. You don't just apply and get that designation. There has to be a validation of your educational experience. There has to be a validation of your experience. And then that's all cemented by the code of ethics. And I cannot express enough how paramount and how important integrity and ethics is to us as HR professionals. Like without that, you know, you are an island. Like you must have those core values. And really this designation really showcases and really illustrates the importance of that very important cornerstone. And the only other thing I guess I would add is I do believe there's research that shows the WIFM that there is greater earning potential when you do have that designation as well.
Perfect, thank you. Questions from the audience? Yes?
One question about the designation. So, as far as I thought, but do you say that we have to have some experience before applying for a CPHR designation?
Yeah, so there is experience you do need to have in different competency areas, and so it's 3 years, I believe, is the sort of standard, and that is vetted through a committee who would review your experience and basically score or sort of mark how you would meet up to what those requirements are. So there's the education, the experience, and then there's the code of ethics piece.
And within that experience, there's a new thing now where we acknowledge now that foundational experience is valuable. And so you can include up to a maximum of 1 year of foundational. So that's like your junior level work. So, you know, maybe scheduling interviews. But when you get into the applied HR level, we need at least 2 years of that, of the 3. Perfect. More questions, please. Yes, in the back.
Yeah, my question is for any of the panel members. Just changing the question, why do you begin a career in HR? Or how do you begin a career in HR? My question is why? Like what energizes you guys to do what you do? Obviously there's a passion and love, but what is your why?
I think that I love that question. I'm actually going to piggyback and ask everyone to answer that question. So maybe we could work our way down. Melanie, if you want to go first. Why?
What is my why? Oh my God, you're blowing my mind. My why, I think, is just like, as I said, I'm 16 plus years in and I'm still learning. So it's not like a role that you get into and you're stuck and you think, oh, I'm toiling at the same thing day in and day out. I remember when I was in second year university and I had a prof say, oh, you're really good at accounting, you should go into accounting. And I thought, oh God, like I just couldn't do that same sort of day in, day out. So I think the why is that I'm continually challenged, that, you know, I do enjoy working with people, even though we jokingly say you can't go into this because you love people, but I am, you know, sort of a social person. So I do enjoy that aspect. And I do enjoy the fact that every day literally is a different day. I guess would sort of be my elevator pitch on the why.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's very similar. Never a dull moment. You are never going to be bored. I always tell people. I think the other thing is that it's a unique space within an organization. So you're going to be dealing with management. You're going to be dealing with kind of the decision makers within an organization, but you're also really going to get to know the employees on kind of a more intimate level. So we have some employees say in accounting that's like, oh, who is this person? And I'm like, well, this, they were hired 6 months ago. So you really get to know people on, from all angles. And one of the things that I really like is helping people to kind of grow or be their best, right? So I know that if somebody comes to me with a benefits question, I can either answer that question or I know where to go to get that question answered. So I feel like it's a very helpful role that you can actually, be that trusted advisor for other people.
I'm going to go probably to the place of what I enjoy doing in HR, and that's if you're a person who likes puzzles. Anybody like puzzles? Nobody? Okay, not for you then.
Only during the pandemic.
Yeah. For me, I think about the things that you do in HR, and problem solving is a big one, right? I think that problem solving is a lost art. It's a competency that's really important today. Problem solving, figuring out, what's going on, where do I look for the resources, what research do I need, how do I figure out the best alternatives to this problem. Problem solving for me is that kind of that puzzler, getting through that. So that's kind of what I love about HR. And I also love, again, I've talked about the variety and so on, but I love the fact that, and most people don't think of HR this way, but embracing technology and embracing math. Right? Because I think that, I think about myself teaching for the last 2 years online. I taught myself probably 8 new platforms and software, and I'm an old dog, so I taught myself those new tricks. And, and I think about the fact that when you are good at math, and I was really keen to hear that Kelsey was a finance major, because that helps you sell your ideas, because often to your senior management, you're selling it on the basis of finances, right? And so I think about those things, getting to know the people, the variety and so on, but it's the puzzling through things every day, the problem solving that kind of attracted me.
You shared an awesome tidbit that I just want to double down and make sure everyone walks away with, because I think you're so right. Often HR folks will get into that room and convince everyone to do something, a new policy or change, because it's good for the people. Right? It feels good. It's the right thing to do. And even though that may be the case, I think often the case, the decision is based on, there's a financial gain. Happy people equals more productive workforce, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Amber.
Yeah, for me, same thing with Melanie, just anything else in school. It was almost too confined for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do until last year. Because everything just seems too kind of black and white, kind of boring. But with HR, it's changing so much, and it's so interesting to me because when I get into the field, I have no idea what it's going to look like, and I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, but there's so many opportunities within HR that you can't say no to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer too. Jealous. This is a fun. I love this one. And there's a funny story in it too, which you'll probably judge me on, but that's okay. I'm being vulnerable here, so be prepared. So I was in high school, didn't know what to do, and I was on the verge of graduating. And my friend picked me up one night to go out on I think we were going to a bar or something, and he pulled up in a convertible, and I'd never been in a convertible before. So I get in, and I didn't have much hair, but it was blowing in the wind. I was like, this is amazing. And of course, it was his dad's car. I'm like, what does your dad do? He's like, he does HR. I'm in. That was my why. That's a true story. That's how it started. But in all seriousness, I actually discovered my why about 12 years into my career. So I was working for some really cool companies up until that point. And then I worked in insurance. And I loved my previous brands and their products. And then when I got into an insurance company, I really discovered my why. I thought to myself, like, I don't care about insurance. Why am I here? I don't understand. And it really challenged me. And then I discovered my why was about building good workplaces and the creation of employment opportunities for the community. So that became my why as a result of working for what otherwise was a very boring product in business. Yeah, so that's my why. Okay, more questions from the audience, please. How are we doing on time? 5. My God, that flew by. Thank you, Beth. Yes.
I have one more question. When you talk about work and place well-being and communication, which are critical things in organizations, I've always, my perspective is about, okay, where to find that job in the position of HRs. For example, as you said, there are 3 functions: recruiting, health and safety, and account. So, of course, it will include in health and safety, but in which positions I have to apply? For example, I have to apply for HR generalists to be able to work in these areas, or health and safety positions. It's because I'm on the verge of graduation, and when I'm looking for a job, I don't know which position is the one that I want to work through the work well-being and communication.
I'm sure it's case by case, but
So you said accommodation. Accommodation is what you're interested in working in?
health and safety.
Did you say workplace accommodation?
Pardon me?
What were you leaning towards? What was the specific that did you say health?
Workplace well-being and communication.
Oh, communication, okay. All right. Yeah, it sounds like wellness, perhaps? You're thinking about wellness? Okay, yeah. So, I mean, those are positions that do exist in the workplace, and they do often align with OH&S, wellness coordinator, OH&S kind of thing, occupational health and safety. So that's kind of an area. I would see, it sounds like wellness is what you're looking for in a career. It is not as, I'd say, accessible in Canada as it is in the US. It's a huge industry in the US, wellness, but we're starting to grow and we're starting to go there. Guess what the pandemic did? Made people think about this one as well. So you are going to see more wellness coordinator positions within the workplace as a result of the pandemic. Folks want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's it. I know that when Amber was talking about the future of HR, I think that is a piece of the future of HR. We are going to see the creation of more of those roles, but I would say right now that's quite niche. And you know, when I scan the job market, I don't really see those very often. I do mostly see generalist, sort of breadth of all sort of functional area roles.
Yeah. Bigger organization is going to give you more access to that type of position. A Nova Scotia Power, Emera, municipalities, hospitals, school boards, those are going to give you more access to those roles.
Check under the union stuff, like labor relations stuff. That might be a good alignment for wellness, because they do a lot of in-house training where you can go out and do training amongst staff, but that's a good avenue to align into kind of that, if that's where you want to go. Sure. Use your labor market stuff.
Yeah, and I would also just add to look at the actual job posting and see what's actually in that role. I know for us, we are a small organization, so we do everything. We do have a separate health and safety, department, but many companies, it's all kind of interwoven. So an HR generalist in this organization isn't necessarily going to be the same in another. So just focusing on titles may be a little bit limiting, but you may be able to find what you're looking for kind of in the meat of that advertisement.
Having worked in Ontario and now in Nova Scotia, I can tell you Nova Scotia has a lot of workplaces that are just in that sweet spot where they need one HR person that does everything. They may even do payroll and everything. So there's many generalist positions out there, but for sure in larger workplaces, I think you'll get a nice opportunity to dive deep into several different topics. I'm going to ask for one more question, then I'm going to wrap up. We're just about out of time, but if the panelists aren't in a rush, and you can stick around for a little bit, for anyone that doesn't have to rush out of here. Yes, last question. Make it a good one. No pressure. Two.
Regarding the path to the designation, what is the process like for someone who doesn't have any background in HR? For me, I have a background in economics, currently doing my master's in economics. And also, what would be your advice for someone like me when it comes to applying for HR jobs, since I don't have technical knowledge?
Okay, so 2 parts. Does anyone want to tackle the designation piece?
I mean,
I
I'm
can
gonna,
if you-
I'm gonna kick that to you.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick it to Beth. Beth,
Gonna
do you want
punt that
to-
over.
No, so I think the one challenge you're gonna have is just on the academic side. The experience piece is fine because you've got, once you jump through the first hurdle, you've got 10 years to acquire that experience. So don't worry about the experience piece. The challenge will be that there's 9 foundational courses that need to be gained before you can write the exam. Or alternatively, you could go through an accredited program, which is sort of all bundled in together, so that satisfies the 9 foundational and the exam all at the same time. So, and I should mention just which ones those are. So NSEC has one, SMU has 2 certificate programs and a Bachelor of Commerce, and then MSVU has a strategic HR management degree.
And I also want to say that economics is a wonderful foundation for
Yes.
HR because you need, HR is a business function. You need to understand all of the functional areas of business, and economics is a wonderful background for HR.
And of the 9, I guarantee you've satisfied one of them, and that's finance one. You probably have done a finance course. So you're at least one in of the 9. And then does anyone want to answer the technical? So I think it's about transitioning away from economics into HR.
So it needs to be a child with experience and advice.
I mean, again, I think it's just being open to getting experience where you can get it, and again, sort of showcasing what skills you do have to bring. Are you taking any courses in that realm at all of human resources, or just economics? Yeah. So you might want to consider that. I don't know how close to the finish line you are, but perhaps there might be an opportunity to pick up a course or 2. Perhaps there's volunteering experience that you can get that might kind of get you down that pathway as well, but just trying to find ways, again, to sort of, again, connect those dots as to, what you would bring from an HR perspective.
Okay. I'm going to wrap up, but we're not going anywhere. Just in case anyone does have a hard stop, we want to finish on time. So I said in the beginning, we have a talented lineup of panelists. I think they've proven their worth and then some. So thank you so much for lending your knowledge and expertise and answering the questions today. Yeah, awesome. So, and we've got little goodies for you, and we're doing a donation to a charity. I forgot which charity. We're doing it to a good cause. So that concludes today's session. Again, stick around if you have any questions. No one's rushing out of here. Thanks for all of you. And again, as I said in the beginning, thank you for investing in yourself. You put down $10, which I think is a wise decision to learn about starting a career in HR and how to get started. And hopefully you've gained some clever tips and tricks, and hopefully you'll stick around and learn a few more. No pressure, but if you want to become a member, we'd be happy to have you. I think one of the things that we haven't touched on that the association does well is connecting folks. So you probably connected with people today, and that's certainly something we can do through our mentorship program, through our professional development events that always have a networking component. And if you have any further questions on the designation or anything about membership or anything from the panelists, you can always reach out to us, the association, and we'll get the answers to you. It's hello@cphrns.ca, and we'd be happy to connect you with the right answer or person. And so thank you. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.